Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We spoke earlier today to David Kelly. He is the CEO of Chakana Copper, TSXV Copper Explorer with assets in Peru. We talked to him about his business plan and his thoughts on how he's going to drive the company forward. If you want our thoughts and opinions on that conversation, and indeed the company itself, you can find that at cruxinvestor.com/club. We can also get company reports. You can also find commentary from market experts from around the world, including on copper. And of course, there are training videos. There are summaries of other interviews that we've done. And there's a thriving community of investors sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other. Go sign up for the waiting list. And of course, we'd love your thoughts and ideas too. So do give us a like, leave your thoughts below. And if you want to see what we talked about, check the description out. David, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Matt. How are you doing?
Real good, real good. I wanted to catch up with you. We've seen a few press releases out and we wanted to sort of see how things are going with you since we spoke to you at the beginning of July. Now, where on earth are you? You look like you're either in a sauna or a log cabin. What's happening?
Log cabin in Wyoming.
Fantastic. What are you doing down there?
Little fishing cabin.
Sweet.
What's that?
What are you after? What are you doing down there?
Cutthroat, brown trout, some rainbows. There's a little bit of everything out here. It's a beautiful country.
Okay, well, best of luck with that. Some photos would be appreciated. And you can tell us next time about the one that got away, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we kick off? Because we quite enjoyed your story. We think copper's big for next year. We like the way that you were going about it and you kind of laid it out for us. So we'll kind of give a link to people about the business plan you set out, unless you look below for that. But today, why don't you kick off, give us a 1-minute overview for people new to this story, and I'll pick it up from there.
Yeah, so since we talked last, Matt, we started a 15,000 meter drill program and advancing the discovery that we've already made. It's a fully funded drill program. We've made great progress in it. We're starting to release results from that. And just to remind people, we've made a high-grade copper, gold, silver discovery in the Ancash province of Peru. It's in a place that's right in the middle of an active mining district, so the infrastructure is outstanding. Peru is a great place to be advancing new discoveries because they're hungry for new operations and new mines, and they're investing a lot of money to support the mining operations in Peru. Our program has been very successful so far. We had drilled 30,000 meters before we started this most recent 15,000 meter program, and at the conclusion of this, we will be putting together the initial resource on this property.
Fantastic. And let's just going to remind people again there, because you made it clear to us that you're not looking to develop this thing yourself. You're not going to get in production. You're explorers getting this development ready. And then it's a question of how you decide to participate after that. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I think the plan A would be to divest this asset to a developer to come in and build the mine, and then it becomes the question of what's the scale of the resource, how big of an operation could this be? We plan to be around as long as we can to explore that upside potential. There's enormous upside potential here, but I will say that this is the type of project that could be developed in a smaller scale and ramped up over time. It's going to take a tremendous amount of drilling really to test that upside potential, and oftentimes when you have discoveries like that and you've got high grade and you're in a great location like we are, you can contemplate other scenarios like starting small production on some of the high grade near surface mineralization, advancing the project and continuing to do the exploration while you're in production. That's not our main goal here, but it is the type of project that does lend itself to that approach.
Right, okay. And again, last time we spoke, you had about $6.6 million at that point, which was going to drive this 15,000 meter drill program that you've got, which I think judging by the press releases, you've started this kind of scout drilling as such. Can you explain to me, because you're hunting breccia pipes, you've identified a few, you're drilling at a few. Can you explain that process for me? What is scout drilling and what are you trying to get? Mm-hmm. What information are you after?
Yeah, so, we've got 23 confirmed breccia pipes. We've drilled 7 of those so far. And, really the game is about testing your targets and seeing which ones are mineralized. We really have 3 objectives when we go into scout drilling. And scout drilling is something where you might drill 1,000 to 2,000 meters on a particular target, maybe 6 or 8 drill holes. And the objective of that is to answer the first question, is it mineralized? And secondly, if it's mineralized, does it have indications of high grade? And the third is what's the general sense of geometry. Obviously, with just 6 or 8 drill holes, you're not going to really fully understand the geometry, but you'll get some sense. It's, most of our breccia pipes have been, kind of inverted carrot shaped bodies where they're narrow at the top and they get bigger at depth. And you put 6 or 8 holes into a shape like that, and you've got some general sense of that. So the high grade is really critical, because if you see indications of high grade, we know we can chase that. These are the high grade formed from fluids moving through the rock. So if you see it at a certain depth, you can go beneath that and track that high grade. So that's really the objective of the Scout drilling program. And then we do that on a number of targets. We pick the best ones to come back in and do the infill drilling, and then that's what would make up the bulk of the resource.
Okay, so again, just for me, and also for an audience perhaps slightly less technically sophisticated. So you've got 23 breccia pipes. You've gone into 7. So if, say you hit exceptionally high grades on one of those, do you just stop drilling elsewhere and say, well, this is enough? This is a kind of company maker for us. The grades are good. People are after copper. It will tell enough of a story. Or do you need to, given the business model, which is we're getting this ready for someone else to come and develop this, do you need to kind of go into all 23, get a sense of what's there, and then check out? I mean, how does it work?
Well, our goal has been to get 10 million tons of the high grade mineralization, kind of the stuff that we've been drilling. Okay. And the reason for the 10 million tons was just as a demonstration of concept. It's not to say that that's going to be the ultimate resource. We think we can get there with 5 or 6 breccia pipes drilled down to about 350 meters depth. But there are, like I said, there's 23 confirmed pipes. We have 92 targets on the property. And when we put all of the information together, and we have extensive, exploration results, geophysical surveys, geochemistry surveys, very detailed mapping, alteration studies, that type of thing. And from that information, we've generated these 92 targets. We don't know how many breccia pipes are on the property. We know there's 23 that crop out at surface and we can stand on them and see them. But we also know there's blind pipes on the property because we've already found one of those with our drilling. So the goal of the drilling is to just demonstrate the concept that these breccia pipes are potentially mineable in terms of their shape and their grade, and that we've got multiple targets still to test even after the initial resource. So that's really the objective right now.
Okay, but 15,000 meters, that sounds a lot. I mean, how quickly are you going to get through that? How many rigs are running?
Well, we've got 1 rig running right now. We do plan to add a second rig, and we'll add that second rig as soon as we get enough infill drilling lined up to fully occupy the 2 drill rigs until we get through the 15,000 meters. But the rate of drilling is about 1,700 meters per month per rig.
Okay.
So right now, that's where we're at, 1,700 a month. Once we add a second rig, we'll be at 3,400 meters a month.
I guess, given the kind of knowledge that you have, you found 23 breccias and 3 outcropping at surface, and you've presented some data into the market. These are good grades, right? 2.1%. It's nice. Is there not a discussion at board level which says, look, maybe we need to kind of accelerate this? The market's getting a little bit warmer, hotter, some would argue, for copper. Mm-hmm. There's a definite interest in copper. People are looking for big copper projects. I don't know how much of your 6.6 million you've got left, but I know you're cautious. That was clear from the last conversation we had. You watch your money. Shouldn't you kind of advance this? Speed things up a bit. Go to market. It's a good market right now.
Yeah, that's certainly an option for us. I think for us the critical threshold or milestone for us was the resource, right? And we're close. We've done, like I said, 30,000 meters before. I think raising money makes a lot of sense once we have a resource out, because obviously there's going to be a revaluation of the company once we get that resource. So it makes sense for us. We've got the money now. Get the work done. Show the market what we have. Draw the line in the sand, and then we can start thinking about raising money.
Okay, so at that point you've got like 48,000 meters worth of drilling. You've got a lot of data. Yeah. You put a resource at, hopefully re-rates in a kind of. So when would that be, actually? Just to be clear on timing. When would you think
our target is March 2021 for the resource.
Okay, so not far away. At that point, you've got some decisions to make, because again, it comes back to the question of whether or not you've got good enough information to attract a developer, or enough information to attract a developer, or enough information to get and raise some more capital, because that's only 5 months away.
Yeah, that's right. Once we get that resource, we do have a decision to make. Do we continue exploring and try to expand the resource, or do we do a PEA on the resource that we have? My view is that we have so many targets, and there's really two ways we can expand that initial resource. We can continue testing the targets, the rest of the 23 breccia pipes, all the other targets that I mentioned, or we can go underground and continue the depth extension exploration beneath the pipes we've already drilled, because none of the pipes we've drilled so far we've seen the bottom of. Every pipe we drilled is wide open. So even though we have intercepts down to 490 meters in breccia 1, we've got a 700 meter intercept in breccia 6. So everything's still wide open. So that's a second way that we could expand the resources, is by going underground and doing much more efficient underground drilling of the depth extent of these breccia pipes. I think it's helpful to look at this diagram that we have here, and it shows the real basic geology on the left. It's more of a cartoon type of diagram, but you can see the long linear red pattern that represents the breccia pipes, and that's that general shape I was talking about, where these are kind of inverted carrot-like features and they get bigger at depth. We don't know the full extent of these breccia pipes in terms of their depth extent. You can see the depths that we've drilled, several other breccia pipes that we've done a lot of drilling on. At breccia 6, we have high-grade mineralization down to 800 meters down hole. In breccia 1, 490 meters, and breccia 5 is actually at about 455 meters, and everything's wide open. So the part of the exploration story that lends itself to huge upside potential is just continuing to explore these high-grade breccia pipes at depth, and the best, most efficient way to do that is underground. And so that's another way we can expand the resources in the future, is by going underground and drilling the depth extent of these.
So what would I need to understand about the kind of numbers that you'd be looking for? Because, I saw a press release come out on the 17th of September talking about 15.2 meters at 2.1% copper. That to me sounds high, and the nearer the surface is, that's probably great grades. But what does it need to look like to be able to go down to those sorts of levels when you're mining?
Well, certainly 2% copper is high enough grade to support underground mining. The value of the rock obviously is going to benefit also from the gold and silver that's there, but certainly 2% is adequate for underground mining. In fact, a lot of the large underground bulk mineable deposits that are mined by block cave type of methods are targeting 1.5% copper. So if you've got 2% copper in a narrow pipe-like body like that, that's well constrained from a continuity standpoint, that's plenty high enough grade to follow underground.
Okay, and then I guess it depends what grade the byproducts are. In this case, silver and gold, and what the metallurgy is, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
but that's exactly someone else's problem further down the line, I suspect. So, okay, that's interesting. Thank you.
So the most recent drill results were reporting on one of the targets we were testing called Paloma East, and the information we had before we drilled is shown on this slide here. All of those symbols represent rock samples that were collected at surface, and the symbols that are shown in magenta are rock samples that are greater than 1 gram per ton gold, all the way up to 7.8 grams per ton gold. So you can see there's very strong gold enrichment in the breccia pipe at Paloma East. There's also very strong gold at Paloma West, which is about 150 meters away from Paloma East. And then there's all these other smaller outcrops in between that also are gold bearing. So this is the kind of targets that we have to test at Soledad. Out of the 23 outcropping breccia pipes, this is the kind of work that we do to qualify them for, and rank them and prioritize them for drilling. So this is what we started with, and what I'll do is I'll just take you through kind of the process we go through when we're drill testing these targets. Again, the map on the left shows the two breccia pipes. We're now in 3D software, so we can project structures and other three-dimensional information, geophysics, into that software. And on the right, because we don't have any initial information about the depth extent of the breccia, we simply take the surface outcrop and we project it at depth. Okay. In this case, we had a breccia pipe that was about 25 meters across, relatively small compared to some of the other breccias that we have. We projected that straight down, and we planned to drill a hole to go straight across it without any idea really what we were going to find at depth. But what we found after drilling the first 3 or 4 holes was that the breccia pipe was much bigger than the 25 meters that we projected down the surface. In fact, within 150 meters from surface, we had blossomed out to about 50 meters diameter. And when you double the size of the diameter of a cylindrical shape, you quadruple the volume. That's the real upside there. So, this is a recurring theme that we've seen all along, is as we continue to drill deeper on these breccia pipes, they get bigger. And the exciting thing about that for us is that that's host rock. That's the reservoir, if you will, where your minerals sit, your copper, gold, and silver. So if your host rock is getting bigger, then the tonnage potential is increasing as you go deeper. And these are some of the grades that we hit. Again, is it mineralized? Yes. I mean, it's obviously mineralized. The exciting thing about the results here, we had high grade, 2% copper. That's great to see. But we also had a real impressive intercept of 172 meters from surface with 0.34 copper, 0.31 gold, and 13 grams silver. And when you start seeing those long runs of mineralization within which you see the high grade, you start getting excited about the fact that potentially you could bring in open pit mining into a situation like this, especially maybe just on the top part of the breccia pipes or within these zones. And we've got these two breccia pipes that are just 150 meters apart. So, if you add that to the mix, you've got high grade that could be mined underground. You have moderate grade material, good grade material starting at surface that potentially could be mined by open pit. Well, then, you just keep adding optionality to the project. And that's what makes this project really special, I think, is the optionality. Some pictures of the rocks. I always like to show rock pictures because any of the technical people in the audience get excited when you show pictures like this. But you can see the real gold metallic mineral is chalcopyrite. That's our primary mineral that shows that hosts the copper. The top left picture is the oxidized part of the breccia pipe, and we oftentimes see really good gold grades in that material. In fact, I think one of the intercepts we had here, had 1.5 grams gold, very near surface, and that's the other benefit of the oxidation process on these breccia pipes, is they often leave you with a very gold-rich cap. One of the other things I mentioned in the news release was that we had drilled the first 4 drill holes, and we had some sense that this breccia pipe was getting bigger at depth. It was going from 25 meters to 50 meters, and that you can see those two outlines here. There's an inner circle that represents the surface outcrop, and then there's an outer dash line that represents what we thought the breccia body looked like based on our modeling of those first 4 drill holes. And the one part of the breccia pipe where we had no information was this southwest margin. So we set up here on hole 137 and started drilling to the southwest towards Paloma West. And we fully anticipated to be out of breccia at about 170 meters down hole. And what we found, we got to that point and then we were still in breccia, so we kept drilling. We started hitting some of the other rock units about midway down the drill hole. So we thought we were getting out of the breccia pipe, and then we went back into breccia. And we actually stayed in breccia to 627 meters depth. It was quite remarkable. And at the end of that drill hole, we were in an intrusion. We believe this is a pre-mineral intrusive rock. It does have mineralization in it, so we're studying that rock. But that ended up being a 650 meter drill hole where we expected it to be about 200 to begin with. So these are some of the surprises we get when we start drilling. And One of the things I really like about this project is every time we turn on the drill rig and start doing this type of detailed exploration drilling, we learn so much about the upside potential of this project.
Look, Dave, thanks for running through that, because we looked through the PowerPoint. Obviously, we sort of take a look at the numbers, and that 2.1% copper number is a bit of an outlier. But you're going through a process. The thing that strikes me though is I don't know if you've got enough money to get you to where you could be, because the scale of this seems huge. You've got so many targets. You've got so many things that you've got to look at, so much data that you could present. So, I mean, you've been through this once or twice. So what do you feel that you need to be able to put on the table in front of a developer in terms of understanding of not just the grades, but the scale of the opportunity, and perhaps the some indication of what this could be for them?
Right. Yeah, and that's really the $1 billion question for us. We have a strategic investor that came in, Gold Fields. The nice thing about Gold Fields is they're very compatible with our strategy of exploring the breccia pipes. They obviously are interested in what's beneath these breccia pipes, what's driving this system, but they also see the value in developing a resource around these high grade breccia pipes, and they are not afraid of underground mining. They're very competent underground and open pit mining. So, the goal would be to get the project to a scale where somebody like that could take on the project. Now, we've been told that 30 million tons of high grade, like the kind of stuff we've been drilling, would be adequate for them, to make a decision on. We'll see when we get there. I think we can get there. Our initial goal is 10 million tons. But if you start thinking about the depth extent of these breccia pipes, there's 23 breccia pipes. We've got 90 targets on it. I don't want to sell this project short, right? I mean, 10 million tons, 20 million tons, 30 million tons, that's great. But what if we get 15 breccia pipes down to a kilometer? We're talking 100 million tons. What if we find a mineralized intrusion sitting beneath this? What if we find other types? We've got mineralization, very high-grade mineralization that sits outside the breccia pipe, and we haven't even focused on that kind of mineralization yet. So, you're right. I mean, there is a lot of work to be done here, and it does need to be accelerated. And we plan on doing that. But the real key for us is that first threshold, get that 10 million tons out, draw a line in the sand, and just tell the market, we're going to keep doing what we're doing, because every time we turn the drill rig on, we get good results. So we're going to take that money and put it in the ground and keep advancing that project. Okay,
so I understand drawing a line in the sand. For you, that's a catalyst moment. You need to explain to the market, though, because they're not going to understand what 10 million means. So what? Why are you aiming for 10 million, not 20 million?
Well, that's a great question, Matt. The 10 million tons, I mean, we could have put a resource out right away, one breccia pipe, but it's kind of like, what's the point? The concept here is having multiple breccia pipes in production at the same time. And the project lends itself to that perfectly. It's got, you're on the side of a hill, you can drift in on multiple levels for multiple breccia pipes, and you can ramp up production by producing from multiple breccia pipes. 10 million tons, the reason we came up with that target was 10 million tons of these kind of grades in an active mining district like that in Peru, that's going to be a mine. So if you show up to the market with a resource that says, okay, this is going to be a mine, now the question is, how big is the mine going to be, right? And that's where we get the excitement to turn this into 30 million tons, 50 million tons, 75 million tons, even bigger.
Right. And again, so it's coming back to investment. We make money by investing in companies like you, okay? So you set your first line in the sand at 10 million bucks and says, that's the number that someone can create, build a mine from. Okay, it's a nice number.
Yeah.
But the potential is more than that. Everything you're saying to me, the potential is more than that. So you've told the market what they need to be looking at as a first stage. What do you need to be telling a partner like Gold Fields or another? Because this may be just an option for Gold Fields. I don't know. So what sort of numbers would they need to see to get them interested?
Well, they've told us 30 million tons would have them interested in developing an underground mine. Okay. And when I heard that, I thought, well, that's a very achievable target for us. I think we can exceed that. Other companies will have different thresholds. There are some companies that are only interested in the porphyry, the big mega scale porphyry opportunity, and we've had lots of expressions of interest to look at that. But the reason we really like working with Goldfields is they like the strategy, the dual strategy that we have, which is focus on the breccia pipes first, develop your knowledge in the district and understanding of the mineral system, and then develop a targeting program to go after other things that are in the district. So it's very compatible with where we're at.
Okay, so how do your shareholders know that you're going to be able to negotiate the best possible terms for them, and the value isn't going to go all towards Goldfields shareholders, right? Because they could come in at various stages here, and you can opt out at various stages here. It'd be fine. It'd be no bad thing. Depending on what you're trying to achieve. So, can you give us a sense of what you are trying to achieve? So, when you've done your 15,000 meters, you do have some options on the table for yourself. It'd be perfectly reasonable time to say, we've done a good job here, and walk away, or you go and raise some more money. I mean, what are the thought processes going through? What are the discussions at board level which says, given these different scenarios, we will react in a certain way? Can you give us an insight into that?
Yeah, I think, from our standpoint, the exploration, we're in the early stages of discovery here, right? And the potential, the upside potential is enormous. And everybody on the board believes that. So we're not planning to walk away anytime soon. We'd like to advance the project on a number of initiatives. We're very aggressive in the exploration, the expansion of permitting, even beyond the area that we can drill now. So we're not in any hurry. I mean, we're in a hurry to get the work done, but we're not in any hurry to walk away. We're learning as we go. The thing about Goldfields is they're a shareholder in the company. They don't have a first right of refusal on the asset. If it goes competitive, then the shareholders will benefit from that. But my wish is that we get this initial resource, we raise a lot of money, we go back, we double or triple the resource, and we just keep doing that. We keep going down that path of getting the underground permit so that we can expand the resources with underground drilling, continuing to test the 90 targets that we have. So I think we've got a long runway here to continue to expand the resources. And at some point, people are going to stop and take note and say, this is an asset that needs to be acquired, and it needs to be in the hands of a developer. And that's why we set up the structure from the beginning. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll follow that story. I want to talk about share price, though. It's kind of fallen away in the last month. In fact, let me start it. Yeah. More exciting for us is literally within days of the last interview we did with you, you went on a run. I would love to say it was me, but I think it's the permits came through. So, so that happened. You went up to nearly $75. You're back down at around 52 at the moment. So you've doubled in price. That's a good day at the office for anyone. Yeah. Why do you think it's kind of fallen off from the heights of 75? Do you think what's going on in the marketplace? Are people nervous about something, or is it just the reset in the market?
I think part of it, we have expanded our U.S. Shareholder base quite considerably, and we have the U.S. elections coming up, and I'm sure everyone of your subscribers and listeners pay attention to what's going on there, and there's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen with the election. So I think that's part of it. Gold pulled back a little bit, and we saw most of the junior resource companies pull back a little bit. I still think our share price is healthy. Obviously, we have shareholders that have made money, and they may be choosing to take some profits at this point in time, but it's certainly not, I don't think, in any reflection of the results. The results have been very strong. Our board, our technical committee with John Black and Doug Curry and myself are super excited about the results. Goldfields is very excited about the results. So it's times like this, you keep your head down and you keep focused on turning the drill and keeping the drill bit turning in high grade mineralization. And our team is really good at doing that. So I think it's a temporary situation.
Okay. I guess we shall see over the next few days, next few weeks and months. Question sent in by someone. which is, and again, it relates to, you know, how much money will you have left at the end of your 15,000 meter drilling, which was, is there a private placement coming anytime soon?
There's not one that we're planning. We don't need a private placement right now. We still have 5.8 million in the bank. So there's nothing pushing us towards, there's not a pending financing on the horizon. That's just where we're at right now. We don't need the money right now, so we're not focused on trying to raise money, and we're focused on trying to get good results and advance the drill program. I want to bring in that second drill rig as soon as we get enough definition drilling lined up. And to me, I want to finish off that 15,000 meters, get the resource estimate on its way, and then there should be a very significant revaluation of the company on the heels of that resource.
Sure. How much will you have left by the end of the drilling?
By the end of the drilling, we'll have about 1.5, 1.7 million.
Does that make you nervous? Is that a little bit too tight? Do lenders or does the market sort of discount you for not having enough cash?
They possibly could, yeah. But I'm not too worried about that right now. I think if we get the kind of results that we're expecting to get, we're going to be fine. I mean, I think at some point the people are going to recognize that you got the seventh largest gold producer in the world that came in last year and paid a 40% premium to our share price to get a seat at the table. Okay. And they did a tremendous amount of due diligence, 3 months. They sent 8 people to site. They were very, very thorough in their due diligence, not just technical, but all aspects of the project. So if you look at it from that standpoint, you've got somebody that's already put money into the program at a great premium. And right now you can buy shares in the company that's at the same price or even slightly less than they invested in. So it's a great time to be buying stock in this company, especially before the resource. Once the resource comes out, we should get a very significant revaluation then. And, that's going to be the time to raise money when we're sitting, well above $1 or $1.50 or $2. So.
Okay. Would you rather take Goldfields money than go back to the market for the next round, whenever that is?
Sure, I'd love to have Goldfields money. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, I mean that seriously, because obviously if it's an offer, you take it, sure. But in terms of just sorting out the kind of shareholder registry and kind of giving it a little bit more institutional flavor, as it were, is that appeal?
Yeah, it does. Goldfields is right at 16.8% right now. They could go to 19.9. We'll see what they're, how they're leaning towards that as we go forward. But I can tell you they're very excited about the results. But we've also got some very strong interest in the story from other institutional groups. So we've got a very solid institutional shareholding right now, and there's still very strong interest in the story. And I think I might have mentioned to you, Rick Rule came into the story too over the summer. So we've got some great names on the share register right now, and people really pulling for us, to bring this home. And it's a discovery. It's an evolving discovery, and I'm excited to be able to come on with you on a regular basis and give people updates, because these are not. This is not the kind of story where everything's going to hang in the balance on a single drill hole or a single press release or whatever. These discovery stories play out over a period of time, and oftentimes it's 1 or 2, sometimes even 3 years, depending on the scale of the opportunity. So we're in the very early stages of this. We did have a lengthy delay due to a permitting glitch, which it took us a long time to work through that, but we did work through that, and nothing's holding us back now. And we're being as aggressive as we feel comfortable right now, because we want to get another 3 or 4 breccia pipes ready for the infill drilling and get in there and just hammer those drill hole, those breccia pipes with the remaining drilling, and put that together with what we've already done, and then come to the market and say, this is what this project can deliver, but at a much grander scale.
Okay, great summary. And we'd be delighted to have you on a regular basis, because I think, if you do get another drill running as well, I think you'll have some numbers which should build up over time. We like the copper story. We like your approach to it. So appreciate that. And do pick up the phone and let us know how you're getting on with that drill, okay?
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having us. Look forward to talking to you in the future.